Welcome to What It Takes Radio. My name is Stan, and I'd like to tell you some stories because storytelling is the only effective means of communication. And if you want to be heard, if you want to have the truth that's inside of you and the truth you know about, come out and have other people listen and respond. They have to hear it, and they have to hear it from you. And always remember that through the ages, the way a truth was explained so that people could discover it, it was always through means of a story. And so let me tell you some stories today. First of all, it's a rather recent story. Just a few years ago, particularly in the United States of America and throughout North America, there was a very, very popular television show. And it was simply called Touched by an Angel. Touched by an Angel. And what it was about was a simple story in which somebody needed some help. And as I always remind people, 7 of the most powerful words, particularly in the English language and in whatever language or culture you're in, it's the equivalent idea. Please, I could use a little help. Remember that. The world is full of people who are simply saying, please, I could use a little help. And the story was about somebody who needed some help. And then they found something out that was vitally important to them. In fact, it was earth-shaking, life-changing, is that an angel had been sent from God to help them, to give them some of the help they needed. Wow. Can you imagine how wonderful it would be if you could get a little help from God? If you could get a little help from anybody so that you could deal with whatever situation or difficulty or troubles, and we all have troubles, life is indeed difficult, that we are going through. The program was incredibly popular and had a long, long run because it simply came in to the very deepest part of the human experience, and that is all of us would like to believe that we're important. As I say, we're all wearing a sign that says, please tell me I'm important. And could it be that we are important enough that somebody, even somebody as powerful and big as God, could come to our assistance and to help us out of the difficulties that we are in? So those were very, very powerful pictures that came out of the many stories of Touched by an Angel. Now, we have recently celebrated in the tradition of the Christian faith, and obviously it's spread throughout the world and is celebrated in a variety of ways, the Christmas story. And for many people, particularly people who are followers of the tradition and believers, it's a very familiar story. But a few years ago, some very new and powerful meanings at least came to me in a fresh and new way. And so, I simply ask you the question, as I get into my story, would you like to be touched by an angel? Would you? Do you believe that's even possible? Do you believe in such miracles, or maybe such deep magic, or some great mystery that perhaps that could happen to you and for you? Well then, from that, what would actually happen? What would be your experience if you could be touched by an angel? Now, that familiar Christmas story is told in many languages, and even in the English language, it's told in many versions. There are many, many ways that the Christian scriptures have been translated and put into modern language, and a language that is oftentimes more of the people than some of the traditional older versions. And I was reading particularly one by an English scholar by the name of J.B. Phillips, who back in the 1950s and the 1960s were one of the first to actually say, we will take the stories that are found in that tradition and maybe update them just a little bit. And as I was reading through them, I found that there was a wonderful theme that came through to me. And perhaps this is what it means to be touched by an angel. In the story, there's a man named Zechariah. And in the great mystery of the whole thing, the mother of Jesus-to-be, Mary, has a cousin. Her name is Elizabeth. And Elizabeth is married to a man named Zechariah, who is afraid that he is going to die without an heir. And that's, particularly in that time, that's a deep tragedy. But some things are beginning to happen that even though Elizabeth, his wife, is older, could it be that she could get pregnant and have a child? Well, in the story, the first angel visit is that an angel comes to Zechariah. Now you can imagine what would happen if all of a sudden there was literally an unearthly presence that came to you. You would probably draw back in fear. And so every time the angel comes, it repeats an admonition, a prescription, an encouragement that is throughout the entire tradition. The angel says, "Don't be afraid." Aren't those powerful words? Don't be afraid. As I oftentimes say, and I've done a lot of teaching on it, fear kills everything. Indeed it does. Hopes, dreams, relationships, fear does kill everything. And in fact, we literally can be scared to death. Fear does kill. Well, don't be afraid. And then the angel says to Zechariah, God has heard your prayers. Hey, Zechariah, your deepest desires, your deepest dreams, the things you want to bring into your life, the things you want to design and do, you know what? They've been heard. Zechariah, you have been heard. Think about that. One of the most powerful things that can happen in your life, and one of the most powerful things you can do for another, is for you to be heard and for you to listen to another. Don't be afraid. You have been heard. Now, what about in all of our relationships and in our workplaces and the places we try and make life happen, if we really knew that we had been heard? Well, that's what would happen. If an angel came and touched you, you would realize that you had been heard. That was the first angel story, first angel encounter in the bigger story. And then the very famous story, part of that, is the very mother of Jesus-to-be, Mary. An angel comes to her. Same words. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid, Mary. You know, you are dearly loved. Don't be afraid, Mary. You found pleasure with God. And by the way, God finds pleasure in all of us. You have found deep pleasure and you are loved. Do you know that you are loved? You feel loved? Have you ever felt loved? One of the greatest human qualities we want and need is to be loved. And the affirmation is there, you know what? You better give love to the world, because that's, in many ways, how you get it back. Love not only makes the world go round, according to the old song, but it is the deepest stuff of the eternal and universal mystery. St. Francis said, where there is hatred, show, bring love. And so, if you were touched by an angel, you would have one of the greatest experiences of love. Think about that. Don't be afraid. You know why? Because you're loved. It's going to be okay. You are loved. Well, that was the second angel encounter. The final one, again, is one that is quite familiar to those who've heard the story, and that is after the birth of the baby Jesus in a stable of all things. Think about that, to believe that someone who was very descendant and directed from God is born in a cowshed with animals on a bed of hay. Hardly a royal appearance for the one who is to be called the king. Now, a shepherd was actually a pretty lowly person in terms of the social scale at the time. They're not even the cowboys of today. They even had a lower rank even before the mythology of that. They took care of sheep and goats. It was not a high-ranking position or a place to be. And it seems that while they were at work on the graveyard shift late at night, doing the work that nobody else wanted to do, and perhaps few could do, but certainly they didn't want to, it says that the angels came and the message is the same. Do not be afraid. Don't be afraid. Guess what? You're not alone. God is with you. Emmanuel, God is with you. As one of my mentors has pointed out, eventually the union of ourselves with God is one of the primary and most unavoidable realities that we have to deal with. How are we going to deal with the fact that literally when the angel comes and says, God is here. God is right with you. You are not alone. Think how wonderful it would be to know that you're not alone ever. You're not alone. You are important. Prayers are heard. You are loved. You are not alone. That's why there's great joy. I simply, having read that, and for many years I've read it and said it again, I've come to the point that that is one of my deep desires in whatever way there could be, that I would walk into every new year saying, don't be afraid, I'm being heard. Don't be afraid, I'm profoundly loved. Don't be afraid, I'm not alone. And that's what it would mean, I think. Based on the story, and the story is the great truths of the world, that's what it would be like to be touched by an angel. And that's something I desire every day. That, TBA, touched by an angel. And my hope and prayer for you is that you go into TBA 2017, that'll be exactly it. It'll be a touch by an angel year for you and for me. And as I often say, now you've heard the story, just let it sit on your head for a while, perhaps sink to your heart, and then flow through your entire being so that literally it is shared with others. All the best and blessings for you for the new year. I'm Stan Houston for What It Takes Radio. Yes, a great and good year for you. And we'll see you around. And bye for now.